A director is one of the most important aspects of a movie. A good director can make a bad movie fun, like Fast and Furious. A bad director can make a good script boring to watch, like Jurassic World. Zack Snyder, I'm kind of in the middle of. He directs, of course, he's directed Watchmen, a lot of DCEU movies, and recently both Rebel Moons. But he also has written some of those movies, and oh my god, they are genuinely very terrible movies. In my opinion, the only good movie he pushed out in the DCEU was definitely Zack Snyder's Justice League. That was a good movie, kind of long, kind of unnecessary, but genuinely a good movie. I don't like Man of Steel, I don't like Batman v Superman, and of course I don't like 2017 Justice League, but that's more because of Joss Whedon. His movie's writing is so bad that it kind of just nullifies all the fun I have watching his directing style, because he's genuinely a good director. His adaptations of the DC Universe betrayed everything those characters stood for, like Batman not killing, Superman being a symbol of hope, Cyborg being man versus machine. Like, it just betrayed everything I loved about those characters and turned them into people who feel nothing like DC. I'm not even trying to be comic accurate here, it's just that they didn't feel like heroes. He also, when people bring up these flaws, he refuses to acknowledge them, and any issues he has, he just can't keep them in check, right? He needs someone who can keep him in check and take his good directing and mix it with his good script. When he doesn't have that, he's pretty bad at taking criticism. Like, someone will criticize his movies, and as we're gonna go into later, he'll just deflect it with, I don't care, it's my movie. His fans are the exact same way though. His fans are such a cult level fan. There's probably top 3 worst fandoms I've ever had the displeasure of looking into. Star Wars is obviously going to be number 1 all the time, and I'd honestly put this at number 2. It's just not a good fandom to be a part of. I'm not into fandoms, I'm going to be honest with you, but yeah, Zack Snyder's cult level fans are just so annoying. But yeah, I'm kind of getting ahead of myself here and mentioning everything that's in the video. I'm Justin from My Studios, and let's talk about how Zack Snyder is stupid. Zack Snyder is honestly a good director. He's able to captivate an audience and create shots that just blast this great music in your face. The flight scene in Man of Steel is a great example. Superman flying, the orchestral theme, the way even X-Men 97, which I don't know if you guys have seen it, but it's genuinely one of the best shows I've ever watched. That Storm's flight scene took it from that scene. It's that good. Even like the scene, like the warehouse scene, even though Batman is killing in that scene, it's still great to look at, right? He's not a bad director by any means. In fact, I would say he's probably in the top 5 directors out there. He's genuinely really good at what he does. But when he writes, that's when he falls. That's when he falters. He just is unable to create a coherent storyline. All his writing credits have the exact same flaws. His pacing is terrible and all over the place. They'll go from super fast to super slow all of a sudden. Right? He'll just write a super fast paced scene and then it'll slow down for 3 hours. Or the movie will be super slow, be fast for 5 minutes, and then go back to being the most boring, silent, and mundane movie you've ever watched. Rebel Moon Part 2 is a good example. I pretty much wasted 2 hours of my life watching that movie. I forgot how long it was, like an hour and a half to 3 hours, I think. But terrible movie. Don't watch any of the Rebel Moon movies. I also think that Rebel Moon is a good example of what's wrong with his writing. The main characters are just so boring, and he has this habit, like with the example at the beginning of the movie, the scene with the robot, the robot just kind of talks to the girl, exposition dumps near the river, and then they leave. And Rebel Moon has a lot of exposition jumps as well. He really doesn't show, he tells. There's a lot of exposition dumps throughout the movie, like maybe every 20 minutes you'll get one, and then it just feels more like he's trying to set up a universe rather than I hate when movies do that too. Marvel's a big offender of this. Take for example a movie like Marvel has a lot of movies that just set up a universe. Their post-credit scenes are a big example. They just not very fun. Eternals is notorious for trying to set too many things up while not creating a captive storyline. And it's just like, man, I don't like when movies do that. And Rebel Moon is a big example because Zack Snyder wants this franchise to have movies and video games. That's not going to happen. Rebel Moon Part 1 and 2 did really good on Netflix, but this universe is just not interesting enough to create movies on it. Like, the entire movie is exposition. Korra also has no reason or resolve to fight, leaving the movie feeling hollow. She's basically just kills the generals and starts a war and drags everyone in with her, while also not really having a reason to fight, genuinely a stupid part of the movie. And it just makes you, as she's going along, recruiting all these people, you just don't feel sympathetic for her. It doesn't feel interesting, it doesn't feel new or unique or worth watching. It's just so boring. But this isn't a review of Rebel Moon. I have this video by this YouTuber right here. Great. I definitely didn't know how to word my opinion of this movie until I watched this video. Definitely some inspiration for this segment of the video in general. But yeah, no, like this video, I'll link in the description, is a great example of just how bad this movie is. But Zack Snyder genuinely thinks this movie is a masterpiece. He said in multiple interviews, this movie is a masterpiece, I can't wait to make a franchise based off this, and he's just so stupid. He's so arrogant and overconfident. A lot of directors like this, for example, Joss Whedon, who only made, in my opinion, one amazing movie. He just genuinely was super overconfident. Same with Zack Snyder though, I'm gonna think. I don't like Joss Whedon either, by the way. If you're a Zack Snyder fan, he ruined Justice League. But he's not really much better than Zack Snyder. Zack Snyder sees all of his works as masterpieces. This is perfect. I have nothing to change. This is beautiful, and if you don't like it, you are a bigot. And it's honestly, we'll get into this later, but his community is the exact same way. Any criticism he gets, he just refuses to listen to any of it. This has happened many times. When Batman v Superman came out, his justification for Batman killing was Dark Knight, Dark Knight, Dark Knight. Even though Batman didn't kill in the Dark Knight. There's literally a comic panel of Zack Snyder, of Batman from the Dark Knight ripping up a gun and saying that's not how they do things. That version of Batman was genuinely a darker but well-written version of Batman that Zack Snyder likes to use as an excuse. Particularly, this is not when he used Dark Knight as an excuse, but it just genuinely shows his arrogance. Was with an interview with, I think a news outlet called SnyderCut BR, SnyderCut Brazil. And by the way, I am a Brazilian. I'm part Brazilian, Portuguese, and I live in America. I don't know. I didn't know there was a Zack Snyder fandom in Brazil, period. But back in, I think it was 2021, he had an interview with Zack Snyder, or with SnyderCut Brazil. They're basically a Zack Snyder fan page, and they glaze him like crazy. But I'll just let you guys watch the interview. The following clip is an uncut clip from an interview he did. And I will link the interview, the full thing for SnyderCut Brazil, in the description below if you want to check it out. Nothing is being taken out of context, and I am putting his full thing in here. Let me know in the comments if I'm not, though. I will be happy to address that in the comment section.
But the question is, how do you deal with negative criticism?
Well, I don't. It's hard. It's hard. I honestly don't try. I don't look at it that much. I mean, look, I looked at and sort of analyzed, and as I think anyone would do, the sort of negative criticism of the films in the past, and I just don't. I haven't found anything within the criticism that would make me believe and or change anything I do. So so in that way, it doesn't really affect me, If I felt like there was an issue or some sort of something lacking within the work, and I needed to look at the criticism to then reevaluate the way I approach things, that would be a different scenario. But I wouldn't change a frame of anything I've done, so I don't, the criticism is just a criticism then in that case.
In this entire clip, he genuinely just criticizes the own criticism of his movies. He deflects it by saying, it doesn't really affect me. He even says that he won't reevaluate it. And he says criticism is just criticism, which is the dumbest thing I've ever heard, because no, criticism isn't just criticism. You need to follow criticism. You need to take criticism to heart. You can't just deflect criticism because you're a godlike figure in the movie community. I don't care who you are or what you do. Saying things like, I haven't found any criticism that would make me believe and or change anything I do, it doesn't really affect me. Are you serious, man? How about how How about in Batman v Superman, Doomsday came in at the very end, was rushed in, and just killed Superman? How that wasn't built up, or how that wasn't even teased at the beginning of the movie? Like, come on, man. Like, there's some genuine criticism here, and I understand if maybe I don't like him as a director, and he's listening to the criticism and he's trying to be better, but he doesn't try to be better, and that makes me so mad. This is one of the most, not longest, but one of the most in-depth research I've ever done for a video, and I genuinely just I've been researching this video for a week, by the way, and it's just so annoying to hear Zack Snyder say things like this, and it just doesn't get rid of the fact that he has issues when it comes to writing, or keeping pacing consistent, or he can't even get a movie right first try. Ultimate cut of Batman v Superman. His Rebel Moon director's cut, which he's using as an excuse to fix the movie, or even though they were filmed at the exact same time, by the way. Like, he just constantly wants these cuts to come out, to change the movie in any way he wants, and it's just so freaking annoying. The only time it ever actually became relevant was the Snyder Cut, because that was I know I'm glazing the Snyder Cut like crazy, but that was genuinely a really, really good movie, and it's the only good movie I think he's ever made, I'm not gonna lie. Man of Steel is mid at best. And let's talk about this for a second. Batman v Superman was a little better, the Ultimate Cut, but I can't really speak on it because I haven't seen the Ultimate Cut in about 4 years, so. But yeah, no, his fans will like beg for these cuts to come out every time he makes a movie, and then they'll just glaze him, even if he gets a little bit of criticism. They gotta come to Daddy Snyder's defense, and it's crazy. So let's talk about his fans, because they're genuinely some of the most annoying fans I've ever met. Snyder fans are probably the most hateful fans I've ever encountered. I said earlier, top 3 most hateful fandoms going Star Wars, Zack Snyder fans, and then I also feel like the Spider-Man community is mad toxic sometimes. But they actually might be more toxic than the freaking Star Wars community, which is so toxic that I refuse to be a part of it. And I love Star Wars, but I refuse to be a part of that fandom. They are constantly praising Zack Snyder in all of his movies every single moment of the day. They glaze him like it's insane. It's genuinely crazy. Everything Zack Snyder does is just like, it's just put on the subreddit, and I think in particular, they have a lot of fun just dogging on James Gunn, by the way. Like his recent suit reveal, keep in mind, I'm about to glaze James Gunn. He's probably the best director right now in superhero movies. Right? Like the Superman suit doesn't look good, it's too baggy, I think. But at the same time, it's like, remember Robert Pattinson's suit on set? This is also a pretty weird pose, by the way. But if you remember Robert Pattinson's Batman suit, that looked terrible. And then you go in the movie, and it's probably in a top 5 superhero costumes ever made, up there with like Spider-Verse, Miles Morales, like Spider-Man at the end of No Way Home, the TASM 2 suit, Iron Man suit from Endgame. Like it's up there with those suits. I freaking love the Batman suit. And then people gotta keep in mind that the suit's not finished yet, obviously. I mean, they're obviously filming the movie, but it'll look better in post. The amount of posts I've seen on the subreddit, people just dogging on this and saying, oh, the James Gunn fans are dying here. It's just so freaking annoying. And I'm sorry the video's coming off as a rant. It really isn't. This is a pretty well-scripted video for me. But genuinely, it just fans are just mad annoying. They're blind to any criticism that Zack Snyder has, and if you give him criticism, they'll just go and believe that he's the best filmmaker ever. And that brings me to r/Zack Snyder. When I was researching this video, I was trying to find out what the community was like. I went on QA, I watched a few videos from SnyderCut Brazil. I watched a few, I went to other subreddits but then I stumbled on this one, r/Zack Snyder. And oh my god, this is the Mount Everest. This is the space station. This is the Mount Olympus of Zack Snyder glazers. Genuinely, I've maybe seen a few pieces of criticism definitely for Zack Snyder's writing during the subreddit, especially with Rebel Moon. But in particular with DC, they'll just glaze. Oh my god, they'll glaze DC so bad. It's insane. Like, take for example, this post. They just, in the comments, they very quickly blame James Gunn for like the delay of the Batman Part 2, but like, genuinely, is that his fault though? He didn't want Superman coinciding with the Batman Part 2, which doesn't really make sense because they're like 2 months, 3 months apart, I think. I think they're 2 months apart. They were going to be 2 months apart. But like, I understand what people saying. It's like you would think initially that, oh, he's delaying it because, oh, Superman. And then you have a bunch of Zack Snyder glazers in the comments basically saying how James Gunn is ruining the universe. But generally, I'm here to offer a point. Number one is the Batman script. In order for the Batman to come out next October, they'd have to film the movie by like July, and it's not looking like it's gonna happen. I knew this movie was gonna be delayed. I'm not gonna lie with you, especially because Matt Reeves is working on the Penguin show first. Before he's basically writing the script, he's waiting for Penguin to come out, and then he's gonna go film the Batman. And does that not make perfect sense? Like, the writer's strike as well. It's easy to blame it. I know people have been blaming it a little too much recently, but it is very true. Like, the Batman Part 2, and people are complaining the movie took 5 years, is taking 5 years to make. And I'm gonna be honest, these people don't work in the industry. The Batman, I'm pretty sure, took 4 years to develop, and that movie turned out freaking amazing. Give Matt Reeves 5 years. I'm happy James Gunn delayed it. Luckily, towards the end of this comment section, you do have some people who actually have common sense. It's like, I'm not hating on Zack Snyder fans. I'm hating on people who just don't have freaking common sense sometimes. Because there are definitely criticisms to have with James Gunn. He focuses a little too much on comic accuracy, for my opinion, for my liking. But genuinely, like, he's a good director. The worst Guardians movie he's ever made, got like I think it's definitely above a 70, maybe even an 80. While Zack Snyder, I would give Rebel Moon Part 2 like a 15 or 20. So yeah, that's just pretty true. The subreddit also has people who just disregard fact. They say something's fact, but it's genuinely just an opinion. Take, for example, this post about the DCU box office graph. It's the Snyder era, the Hamada era, and the Gunn/Safran era. First off, let's break this post down immediately. Gunn and Safran have not released a single project. I know it technically came out when they were in the development of the movies, but especially with Shazam and The Flash and Blue Beetle, there is nothing to blame. And from what we've heard behind the scenes, they actually made Aquaman: The Lost Kingdom a better movie than it was initially. But of course, morale is low on DC, and the Safran era for me didn't start yet, but whatever, right? That's wrong, but right, we'll stick with that, right? He had no control. He had no creative control over those movies, but yeah. Now I'm about to say something that's crazy. I know Gunn didn't have any control over those movies, and I definitely don't like the Hamada era, but these movies were made during COVID. I know I can't say that word on YouTube without being demonetized, but for example, Black Adam was ruined by The Rock. Suicide Squad, Wonder Woman, and Birds of Prey all came out during COVID. Or at least Birds of Prey came out right before COVID, so it definitely got hurt because of that. And that's why they're making so much less. That's why. I also want to point out, which I thought was pretty funny, genuinely, the biggest earning movie in the Snyder era was a non-Snyder movie, which is mad funny. Although I will say, again, I don't hate Zack Snyder and his era with DC. I just don't like it very much, and you can love it. I really don't care. I just hate glazers and people who just deny fact. Like, for example, Gunn wasn't under creative control of the recent DC movies. Starting with Creature Commandos, then I'm gonna start judging with a magnifying glass. So in general, I trust James Gunn to cook, and saying that he was in control of those movies is massively ingenuous. But I've been hating on Zack Snyder fans and their glazing of glory, but honestly, there are some pretty wholesome DC fans. Like, genuinely, I love Marvel, and I will glaze a character like Spider-Man. But like for this post, for example, what is your favorite memory you had with the DCEU? Experience with a scene you had? And there are some scenes I genuinely loved. The Flash scene from the Snyder Cut, the Superman flight scene, Batman warehouse scene, the scene with Superman's death at the very beginning of Justice League Snyder Cut. There was Aquaman in the scene where he gets to try it. There's just so many good scenes in this era. And I understand why people love it, and this post is just so wholesome. For example, this one down here, 2013 to 2016, my favorite years for the DCU. I love the character Superman since I was a 3, and I was skipping class to watch Man of Steel opening day. Never regretted that. That's just a little bit. This guy is reminiscing about the comics and how much he loved that movie, and I honestly respect that. Genuinely, I really don't. I don't hate you because you love something I don't. I just hate you because you're a D1, you just won't leave Zack Snyder alone. You're his number1 fan. It's crazy. But that's actually a good put-off point because the DCEU is terrible, at least in my opinion. I mean, I loved Zack Justice League, loved Aquaman, and I loved Shazam. But those are really the only 3 movies I really seriously enjoyed thoroughly. Let's time to talk about his adaptation of these DC heroes. Zack Snyder is notorious, and I mean notorious, for not sticking to a character who they are. His most famous change is making Batman kill. I wouldn't have minded, by the way, if Batman maybe started killing and then stopped as the movies progressed, and they definitely did this at least a little bit. But like, it wasn't intentional, I don't think. I just massively loved. I would have liked an arc to see where Batman maybe in Batman v Superman he kills a lot, and then in like Justice League he starts to like maybe not want to kill anymore, and then he throws away the gun, has like a moment kind of like how the Dark Knight Rises goes. I'm saying I'm pulling a Zack Snyder here. I'm referencing the Dark Knight, but like he breaks the gun. Like that'd be such a cool moment to have in live action, and I would love that. Yeah, Zack Snyder took Dark Knight and was like, yeah, okay, Batman kills. That's my excuse, even though he doesn't kill in that entire comic book. And by the way, I've made an entire video. I'm gonna link it in the description. I'm actually gonna put it in the end card, where basically Batman should not kill. I made this about a few months ago. Very successful video, by the way. Thank you guys for the support on that one. But yeah, another thing I really didn't like is how they made Superman a god instead of a man. Superman is kind of like the opposite of what Marvel is. Marvel is normal people trying to grapple with superpowers. DC's more superhumans, gods who have to live with humanity. Superman, Clark Kent, probably the most loving man on the planet. Everyone admires Superman. Everyone admires Superman. I mean, he's speaking of hope. He's what you should be. Superman is like the recent trend with Starman. That was great as a DC fan, as a Superman fan. But yet, Zack Snyder didn't really adapt that. His Superman was a god. And I want to put this out real quick. I don't care that he killed Zod. I actually agree with the decision. Zod was a massive threat to the planet. If he didn't kill Zod, Zod would have definitely gone. I would have preferred if he put it in the Phantom Zone instead. But I didn't mind him killing Zod. It's where he like starts killing all the other. It's like when Snyder decided to turn into a villain and turn into an Injustice storyline is when I started having a problem with that character. Which didn't happen until Batman v Superman. So in terms of his character in Man of Steel, it wasn't terrible. Definitely not Superman. But if it was a Superman clone, I would have been happy. Like, this is not like that bad. It's okay to make changes like that. For example, Aquaman. He's such an idiot in the comic. I know people like to like defend Aquaman. I don't care about Aquaman. His character in DCEU was way better than the comics. I like his changes. I like him being a tough guy who has a heart of gold, who stands up for his kingdom. It's a little generic, but I had fun with it. Like, that's a good way to change a character. And I want to also put another thing out. I don't care about comic accuracy as much as other people do, but I just don't want people like Zack Snyder turning every character into angst. There's a few characters that can be angsty. I think like Batman, of course. I think it's okay for like Cyborg to be a little. Cyborg's also another character they did terribly. No happy moments, no booyahs, no jokey nature. Just I'm a robot. Beep boop. Pain, vengeance. Like they didn't do anything with that character, and that really annoyed me. I love DC, man. I know. I talk about Marvel like 90%, especially in the next 2 months. I'm about to have a lot of Marvel videos out because it's just the way stuff lined up. But I prefer DC. Marvel has better movies, but DC has better animated TV shows. They have better characters. They have better comic books. They have better comic book arcs. They have better like live action TV shows. The only thing Marvel does better, that does equal to DC, that's not movies, is video games. Because Insomniac Spider-Man, like Midnight Suns, Iron Man Simulator, like they're just as good as the Arkham games. I mean, not Iron Man, but the rest of them are. And Batman, there's really only Batman on DC, so I actually think Marvel does get video games. But I freaking love DC, man. DC is just my favorite franchise of all time, and I really want someone to do him justice. I'm really hoping, I don't want to bring this back to James Gunn, because this isn't a video about James Gunn. I'll probably cover James Gunn before Superman Legacy comes out. Or now Superman, I guess. But in general, I am just a massive hater of Zack Snyder. He's a great director, and I mean great. Again, I'm going to mention it every time I bring him up. Flood scene and warehouse scene. Two of the best scenes in a DC movie, period. But you can adapt them in different ways. So yeah, thank you guys for watching. I've made a lot of videos on the DCEU. On the DCEU, I've literally made, I probably made about 3 videos on this. So I'm going to link them probably at the end card, I think. Seriously, go check out that guy's video on Rebel Moon. That was a lot of fun to watch. I watched the entire thing even though I didn't have to. Mad good. And yeah, thank you guys for watching. This video is much longer than I thought it would be. I think it's clocking in at 15, maybe 20 minutes, which is mad. I expected it to be like 10 when I first made it. But yeah, no, it's like a 20-minute video. Like, subscribe, hit the bell, stay electric, and I will check you guys out in about 2 weeks with I think a video on, funny enough, the Star Wars fandom. But yeah, I'm Josh from my studios. Thanks for watching this video. Like 4 hours of editing went into this, and yeah, like, subscribe, hit the bell, and I'll check you guys out in about 2 weeks with another video. Stay electric.